Yo, what's up, guys? Kusanagi here, and we're here today to talk about Liberalio, the newest unit in Goddess of Victory Nikke.
Hey, Internet, I'm going to give you 5 seconds to subscribe.
Liberalio is the latest Burst 3 who's been shaking things up, especially when paired with Scarlet Black Shadow. But don't get too excited, because she brings some great damage potential, but also comes with some critical team building caveats that you need to know. So let's get into it. On initial damage, Liberalio outdamages Scarlet Black Shadow, which is crazy, but this power comes in with some real restrictions when you start doing team building. First things first, if you're planning to run Liberalio and SBS together, you cannot place another Burst 3 in position 5 or they'll steal the charge speed buff from SBS. If you read the skill carefully, it will give the charge speed buff to the lowest attackers, thereby decreasing your damage. And that buff is really critical for SBS's damage output. So if somebody else's take it, you're going to see her damage tank. And it took me a little bit of double taking and also asking other people or learning from other people that essentially the buff was being stolen because I didn't properly read it. I actually thought it was highest attacker and thought it didn't really matter what unit was in position 5. So what this really means for team building is that you're going to need to run two burst 2 supports that synergize well. Some good examples are Nayuta and Crown, Made Mass and Made Anchor. Probably Tia Naga will work. I don't believe bunnies are going to work very well here with Noir in position 5 and being a burst 3. She's very likely to steal that buff. Blanc and Rouge could also work, but just be aware that is probably going to brick your electric team a little bit. All right, so what about the EVA units that we got as part of EVA Part 2? So Wind Asuka and Wind Ray, as compared to Liberalio, perform similar or better. It just kind of depends on your setup and your investments. The key difference is if you're going to run Asuka and Ray with Liberalio, the charge speed buff basically is negligible. It literally does nothing. And so that means you can run Wind Ray in position 5 for a mono wind team, and Liberalia will still buff and do good damage, but it's damage that is just really specific to Liberalio herself. And it also means that Ray can give her Annihilation State buff to Asuka, which makes this pretty good for some wind heavy content. All right, so how should you actually build Liberalio? The priority stats are going to be attack and elemental, as we have for pretty much most of our DPSs. Ammo capacity is nice if you can get it, but it's less critical if you're running reload focused teams like a Crown and Maid Mass team together. Cube recommendations if you're going to run her with maids or in that Maid Mass formation. Resilience cube is really good for that fast reload setup. But if you are in the situation where your cube isn't very good or you're missing Maid Mass, then you're going to want probably at least one line of ammo to make sure that she's not constantly reloading. Now, we get to the controversial part of the build. I've built a charge speed version and a crit damage version on my two different accounts. Tested both. I'm still actually on the fence. I'm not sure at what point the charge speed breakpoint really makes a big enough difference. On my free-to-play account, had about 15% charge speed. That would be 2 blue lines on that account, and I think there was 1 black line charge speed. And she's hitting about 8 to 9 shots per full burst, which is pretty good. And then on my main account, I was getting consistently about 6 to 7. Now, if you're running her with a maid duo, crit damage can pop off because you're talking about extra damage that is more or less guaranteed when you're running with maids. Personally, I didn't see a big enough damage to say either way. And so my bottom line would be build attack elemental first on your gear roll, and then optimize for charge speed and crit damage if you have the rocks. They're micro optimizations. I think at this point they're not mandatory, so I would not be trying to lock first line charge speed or anything like that. I would be trying to get those elemental and attack rolls and a little bit of ammo first, and then those crit damage and charge speed lines fall into place. You can just hold on to them until there's a better consensus around how much charge speed is actually needed and what that, where you basically get to diminishing returns. In my free-to-play account, for example, I'm pretty sure 15% is past diminishing returns at this point. But I went a little extreme just to see how crazy could I build it and what the impact would be on the character. All right, let's talk about skill investments. Leveling her is pretty straightforward. She is a pilgrim, so it's going to be budget build at 777, and max build is going to be 10 10 10. She's buffing SBS with skill 1, so if you're planning to run her with Scarlet Black Shadow, then you better max that skill out, in my opinion. And then when it comes to skill 2 and her burst skill, she is a damage dealer, so you're going to want to make sure that those things are active, especially for bossing. All right, closing thoughts here. Liberalio is going to bring a ton of power to the game, but she's not going to be plug and play like a lot of units we've had in the past. You're going to need to build around her if you're planning to use her with Scarlet Black Shadow. This will be especially true in the upcoming solo raid. You need to think about where she's going to go in relation to either buffing Scarlet Black Shadow and what kind of units are really going to fit on that team. The meta has changed quite a bit as of late. Most people have pretty much replaced Naga with a T3 Helm. In this scenario, it's likely that you're not going to want to run Helm in position 5 just because of the loss of the charge speed buff to Scarlet Black Shadow. So that leaves you with a couple of different possible team configurations that would really maximize the damage on Scarlet and Liberalio. If you want to see some of those team compositions, drop by the Twitch channel. I'm live every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I'll leave a link in the description. Let me know in the comments if this guide was helpful, if you managed to pull Liberalio, and like the video. I would appreciate that. If you're still pulling or you're still coping for a copy of Liberalio or Nayuta, I wish you good luck, and bye-bye.